All right, we are so excited to be here. We have some of Synergy Solutions Group's finest here today. I'm Nick Davis. I'll be the host today. I work with MSD, Mechanical Services and Design. We're located in Dayton, Cincinnati, and Columbus, Ohio. Aaron, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Aaron Carter. I'm with Vital Mechanical here in Seattle, Washington.
What about Sam?
Yeah, Sam Conkey with Cox Engineering. We service the Boston market mainly.
Boston, gotta love Boston. So fun, right? Not that Washington is not great. And then we got Craig. Craig?
Yes, hi, I'm Craig Condon. I'm Vice President of Sales for Pacific Rim Mechanical, and we service all of Southern California, and I'm located in San Diego.
Awesome. Well, we're all part of the task force, right? The Business Resource Synergy Task Force, and one of our latest calls, we were talking about a thing called ICP. Craig, what the heck is ICP?
I think it's Ideal Client Profile. Is that it? Did I pass?
Spot on.
All right, good deal. I had to do a quick research right before this podcast. Our ideal client profile is a client that depends on their mechanical systems for their ongoing business operations. So we do a lot of work in the pharmaceutical, biotech, life science market, and they're heavily dependent on their systems, and so they're not shy to spend money for us to maintain their equipment and keep things up and running, because it's protecting their research and their manufacturing.
Absolutely. And it's we talk about those key ingredients that help really define that go no go type of status, right? So
right.
It's throughout the company, right? So keeps everybody really aligned on what those key ingredients are, how important they are, right? Because the last thing we want to do is go hunt a deal, relationship, or building a relationship with an entity that isn't necessarily the best fit for what each company is. So I think that's really, really hard. We joke around that MSD, like there's no such thing as low-hanging fruit, right? Relationships take time, and you have to consistently nurture it, and it's got to be mutually beneficial. But if we don't have the right ICP key ingredients, what Craig's talking about right there, it's not going to be a long-term mutually beneficial relationship. Frustration's going to grow. People are screaming at each other. I mean, all the worst things you can imagine inside an organization, right? So it's really, really key. And you see how quick. I mean, Craig, you're right on it, man. You know it. You know that ingredient. What about you, Aaron? What's some of the things you look for inside the Vital world from that ideal client profile?
Yeah, we were actually we just did our annual all hands, and that actually was kind of a big topic that we talked about is what type of client do we want to partner with long term. And our BHAG here at Vital is to partner with clients, internal people, and also vendors that share our core values. What we really look for is people that align with our core values, have integrity, make decisions based off of not just what's right for them personally, but what's right for their organization. We like to, our salespeople, we like to have them treat opportunities like they're a business owner. So, and not just like a transaction. So, we look for long-term partnerships, clients that really think like we think, and it just, everything's easier. I mean, when you work with people that aren't grumpy, our technicians are happy, our foremen are happy, our accounting teams are happy. It's all symbiotic when that happens. I have 3 or 4 jobs last year that I didn't work with the ICPs, and they were absolutely my worst jobs. And it was a struggle all the way through, from the kickoff to the execution of the project to finding money when it came time to pay for it. And it's all that working for the right people is just so important.
So that low-hanging fruit, it didn't work out too good.
No. We actually have a rule. We don't work in businesses that have cash registers. And you know what? It was my favorite pizza joint. we went and did a job for them. It didn't work out very well.
That's right. Like financially stable might be an ingredient that matters, right? Constant cash flow. So, but just because they have a cash register by the door doesn't mean that they're financially stable, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's so easy, right? It's so easy, and we can laugh about it now, right? But I think everybody on this call has had a few of those in their career, right? And that's how we've learned, and that's why we developed the ICP and why it's so critical, right? And again, we're hearing from all over. You got Craig down here in the California, San Diego area. You got Aaron up in Washington. You got Sam out in Boston. I mean, it doesn't matter where you're at inside the United States or for instance, across the world, right? But you got to make sure that those ingredients align with the company's expectations. And I love what you guys did at Vital about tying it back to the core values. Because if a client doesn't align with the core values, that's probably not going to be a good fit.
Right.
What a full circle, too. What about you, Sam? What's some of those key client ingredients that Cox goes to market looking for?
Yeah, so I think kind of to echo what you guys are saying, like we've definitely learned from our mistakes over the years. I think you see what works, you see what doesn't. I'd say the number one lesson learned that we've had, our number one rule has been nowhere with beds. So we're not going chasing after hotels, residential areas. We definitely found our niche in true commercial real estate. But I think tying it back to the core values and when we're on site and when we're walking these jobs, in the back of our mind is always the technician. Who's going to be living this life every day? And I think that's at the forefront of our minds, just to keep in mind, what will their day-to-day look like? And is it going to be somewhere that they're going to be happy? Because they're employed by Cox, they work for Cox, but these customer sites are really their end-all be-all. So we want to make sure that they're dealing with people they want to be dealing with, clean sites, making sure that everybody's happy and on the same page from day one until project end.
Yeah, a good example, Sam, that we had a couple years ago. This was kind of when I was first being introduced to the ICP and kind of living what it means. We had a customer in Seattle, and they were one of our biggest clients. And we were putting guys in situations that, was with homeless people and was with low-income housing. And they were our biggest client, service-wise, repair-wise. And we fired them as a client. And that was really tough because we had to come up with preventative maintenance to be able to fill that gap. But, you look back at it and the guys are happier. That's a big deal for a company to walk away from a big book of work for the right reasons and say, we're going to focus our efforts on something else. At the time, our guys were like, what are we doing? But, it all pays off in the long run when you have a plan and you go after it.
Yeah, that's really a good point. One of the cornerstones of Pacific Rim, we put our employees before our customers. And we make sure that we're taking care of our employees and we're creating a great work environment for them. And our goal is to create a happy workforce. And if they're happy, they're going to extend that to the clients. And, that is really a critical, like I say, a cornerstone of our company. And one of the things, too, is that when we make a mistake, because we always do, we all make mistakes. When we do, we hurry up and admit it and we fix it right away. And those actions is what retains clients because they know that they can trust you. So those are some of the cultural things that we try to constantly reinforce here day in and day out at Pacific Rim.
Yeah, I love that so much. And what you just said right there is, put the people before the clients, because if the people are not happy, more than likely they're not going to go and deliver the best experience for the customers. So I think that is extremely powerful. And I think that's really important for everybody to take the time when you're building out that ICP and you're looking at technical strengths, it also has to be a good fit on the personnel side as well, right? And that really goes into really what I mean. Back to this hit on Aaron said, with cash registers, there's reasons why, but it was a 911, it was an emergency fit, but their specialty of what their technical and what their personalities wanted to deal with wasn't a good fit. Same thing with Sam at Cox, right? The beds isn't a good fit. I mean, it's not to say there's not companies that's a good fit for. That's their niche, right? But it's just, and I think that shows a sign of maturity when you have a well-developed ICP starting with people first, and then making sure that it aligns with the right client profile. So that's all amazing stuff. It can be overwhelming, right? Developing that ICP, round robbing it a little bit. What do you have to offer the companies that are hearing about an ICP for the first time? Any recommendations out there? How to get started?
We actually came up with a matrix, and it was kind of what is our ideal client, and it started off as an Excel sheet, and I've got it printed on my wall. But trying to identify what that ideal client is individual for every company. Like Sam, we definitely go after the hotel and the apartment buildings, and that's right for our company. There's lots of companies that will work with cash registers. It's just it's identifying what you're good at and what you want to be good at, and it's not always just the type of work, it's also the type of people you're doing work with. That's what we focus a lot on. Before we open up any job, whether it be preventative maintenance or project, it all started from us on this Excel sheet that we were looking at on the wall. And now it's anytime through our CRM that we enter in a new opportunity with a new person, we go through a checklist on a bunch of different questions that really trains salespeople to think through the mind of, is this the right person, and kind of talk themselves into why. We find that really, it's not all about doing the right work for the right person, but it's doing profitable work for the right people. And our profit margins have really gone up by being picky and choosing the right people. The bottom line is it's just, you're working with people that work with you, and they're not adversarial. They're not trying to be grumpy. They want you to win just as much as you want to win. So very powerful right there. Right. And it's got to be a win-win both ways, which means information has to be shared. You have to proactively, have conversations in advance. What about you, Sam, Craig? Anything come to mind for companies just kind of entering into that ICP world?
I think something that Craig said, but both Craig and Aaron, that stood out to me, I think that we do, is don't be afraid to fail fast. If it's not working, don't be scared to fire the customer or find a new way to make it work. One way or the other, just if you're going to fail or if things are going south, I think taking accountability for that immediately and figuring out what will work, or if it's just won't, just owning that right out the gate, will set you up for success. I think as long as your expectations are aligned both internally with your team and then presenting that to your customer the same way, then you're set up in a good way.
I totally agree with you, Sam. That's really a good point. One of the things I think I would recommend is to periodically interview your current clients to take their temperature to see how you're doing. We have a few customer experience representatives that work for us, and that's their entire job. And we want to try to catch any problems when they're small before they erupt into a big forest fire, and try to retain our clients, but also to identify where it's not working, and not being afraid to walk away, in a professional manner, of course. But and one of the things too that we've found is that our target industries that we go after, the life science industry, we do a lot of in the entertainment um, industries as well, like SeaWorld and Legoland, those types of clients. But our clients tend to move from one company to another and they bring us along, and so that's the importance of having good, solid, strong relationships where you're constantly having dialogue with your clients and being honest with them and fixing it quick when it goes wrong. And so those are, I would say, clients that are not concentrated solely on money, but on performance and results. Those are some of the factors that we try to look for when we're dealing with our client base.
Yeah, I think that's key too. And you both just hit on that full circle. Is like, I love the fact that Pac Rim takes it so serious that they have 2 full-time people that do nothing but just manage the pulse of those relationships, right? And somebody, it doesn't matter, what size your company is, when you build that ICP and you're trying to get those ingredients right, it has to be measured, right? And we have to figure out, okay, as a company, right, what process needs to be addressed? How do we do that timely deliverable, that immediate repair that Craig's talking about there? And how do we measure that and constantly improve? Because, there's 3 types of people in the world, right? You got people that watch the needle, you got people that move the needle, and you got people that are trying to figure out what in the hell just happened, right? So we want to be proactive. I love what Pac Rim's doing there. I mean, measure it, and it's real, right? Like, what happens when something comes back at Pac Rim and it doesn't hit the status of what the ultimate goal is?
Well, Lindsay and Rachel's responsibilities when I've told them, I said, it's more important for you to find out what's wrong than what's right. And when they find something where we're underperforming in a client's perception, it depends on what it is that we're doing wrong. Is it a billing issue? Is it a sales issue? Is it a technician issue? Is it a dispatch issue? And whatever the source of the problem is, that manager, for example, if it was sales, they would get me involved and I would go out with them to meet with the client and figure out how to solve the problem. And then once we do, we get back to the client, let them know what we've done. And then we do a follow-up after that to see if that fixed the issue. But their responsibility is to get the appropriate manager involved to fix the problem quickly.
Yeah, that's immediate. And then Sam, I loved what you were sharing too, is like, sometimes you got to pivot. You got to figure out, hey, this wasn't working. Like what Craig's saying there as well, is like, we got to make an adjustment. We got to fix it, right? But I think like the key thing too is like, for those out there just new to the ICP is, and Aaron hit on that, right? Like the Excel version, right? You can start in the Excel. It can be real simple. And then just list down like top left, right? We're trying to hit top left. What's those key core ingredients that just is that's the key that we want to actually go after. That's what we want to target, because we know it's going to be a good fit for both parties, right? We have the technical expertise. It's a good fit. Our people want to be there. They're happy, right? And then you got that section to the right, which is like primary growth. They're getting there, right? Then you got the secondary down, lower tier, lower left tier, right? And they're just not, right? They're just not there. And then you got your far right, bottom right, that we don't want anything to do with it, right? And we all have those, right? I think that's healthy. Like Sam, you were saying, sometimes it's just not a good fit.
Right.
So we got to measure those, right? So at the end of the year, you're measuring surveys, you're measuring feedback, you're evaluating your client profile. What do some of your companies do? What do you have for the listeners out there to try to, remove the bottom tier that's clearly just not a good fit? It's a distraction. Because that can be a hard thing to do, right?
We try to make it work all the time.
That's right.
It's tough to let a client go, but right. if our front line, the most important people in our organization are our technicians, because they're the ones that are selling our company day in and day out, making that impression. If we have a client that doesn't treat our technicians well, then that is a major trigger where we'll let somebody go.
We sit down, this is specifically on the project side of things, but we sit down and do lessons learned once every month, and we talk through a list of projects for multiple salespeople. And one of the questions that we have on there is this person share our core values, and are they a long-term fit for us? We have our superintendents in this meeting, obviously, and we're talking really through, do we want to do work with this person again? And if not, that's totally fine. Was it the client that made this thing a loser, or was it some of our internal processes? We really try to identify, if they're not a fit, let's weed them out now and move on. And on the service side of things, we really try to empower our people to raise their hand and say, this is not a good client. It's sometimes, the client will go to another contractor, and they'll be a great fit for them. It's just not everybody is a great fit for us. And, we try to identify that early on, like Sam said.
I think it's kind of funny because, like, when I first said, like, well, what do you do if somebody's in that bottom tier and they're just like, so granted, like 95% of all the clients fit that profile, right? Because whether you have an ICP or not, right? You went out there and you said, these are our niches, these are our strengths as our organization, this is the target market. So companies end up in this situation where you're like, you always have a pretty good base of what you're comfortable, where your expertise lies, right? Because you need that you have to be confident, you have to know what you're doing. But when you get those clients that don't fit that, and also as companies emerge and change and develop a little bit, you could outgrow where you're at, or clients could outgrow us, right? It's just organizations going a different direction, and that happens. But I think it was funny how it's just kind of like a pause, because being Synergy members, right? We want to always make it work, right? We want to do everything we can in our power to get there. And I love that, because then Craig hit it, man. Craig was on. He's like, well, there is those situations. We don't like them. All hands on deck. You got Aaron talking about the project over here, right? Like, hey, let's circle back. Let's get real, right? So I do love that, because I know for me it was awkward, right? I wanted to make it work, and I was like pushing it, right? And but at the end of the day, you can't force, right, a square peg in a round hole, right? There's clients that are a good fit, and there's clients that aren't a good fit. And whether you have the ICP, I think we heard very well from the group here today that you can start as simple as writing down those key core ingredients, right? Focusing in on the core, focusing in on those clients that you're trying to get to that core status. And then there's those that clearly just, there's not an alignment there, and that's okay. That's okay. So this was a fantastic session. ICP, what the heck does that stand for again, Craig?
Ideal client profile, Nick.
Oh man, I can't. Aaron, what's that word? What is that out in Washington? You guys got what?
Ideal client profile. Yep.
Man, Sam, what about Boston territory? You got that ICP?
That ideal client profile. You'd be surprised, but we can be sticklers too.
Hey, best of luck out there. Synergy members, you got a team here that just loves you, wants to see your businesses grow and thrive. Reach out to us. If you want to see examples, reach out to us. We'll share it. But let's go build and focus in on maturing our organizations with the right clients that fit our, what was it again, Craig?
Ideal client profile.
All right. Thanks for listening in, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
See you guys.
Bye-bye.